Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you again, Chairman Clayton. As you know, right now investment advisors are subject to what's called a fiduciary standard. That means they're legally required to put the financial interests of their clients ahead of their own interests. Brokers who get a commission for every trade that they make follow different rules. And in fact, they can recommend a product that boosts their own commission, even if it isn't the best deal for the customer. And we also know that brokerage firms artificially create all sorts of perverse incentives to encourage brokers to make certain recommendations that are very profitable for the firm or for the broker, even if they aren't real good for the customers. So that's a problem. And in April, the SEC proposed some new rules for brokers. Now, Mr. Clayton, as you've told me before, the idea behind these new rules is to help regular retail investors, you like to call them Mr. and Mrs. 401k, to make informed choices, right?
That's one component of it. There are several components of the
Okay, but it's trying to help investors make informed choices, right? That's what this is about.
Absolutely.
Okay. So one option would simply be to make brokers subject to the same fiduciary standard that investment advisors are subject to, but you didn't do that. Instead, the SEC's proposal says that brokers have to act in the best interests of the client, but then you never define what best interest actually means. So here's where I'm stuck. For the proposal to help customers make good decisions, they need first to understand the difference between a broker and an investment advisor, and second, how the fiduciary standard for investment advisors is different from the best interest standard for brokers, which is something you don't define. Do I have that right so far?
I don't think so. I think we're pretty clear on what the best interest standard, and we're going to be clear on.
You're saying you do define it in the rules?
The best interest standard, as we've proposed, means that you as a professional.
I'm sorry, is it defined in the rules?
Is there a specific definition that says this is what it means? No, but there's no specific definition that says this is what the investment advisor standard means.
So I just want to be clear then. Anybody who's trying to figure this out first has to figure out, do you have a broker or an investment advisor? And then secondly, they have to figure out, depending on which one you have, what the difference is between the fiduciary rule and the best interest test. Is that right? Otherwise, you can't.
Almost, because you also have to understand the relationship. You've got it exact, but there are three components to it. The advisor relationship, the reason it's important to understand who you're dealing with, whether it's a broker or an advisor, is the advisor relationship is a portfolio relationship.
Okay, you've got two, and you're just telling me it's even more complex than that. All I want to get to
that's where we sit today.
You can't start. I know, and we could have fixed that by just giving everybody the same rule, but we didn't.
Well,
so here's the question. You've got to start with the difference between an investment advisor and a broker. The SEC has done a study on this, and your own data show that a lot of investors have no idea what the difference between brokers and investment advisors is, and the legal standards that are different for each of them. Your Office of the Investor Advocate commissioned a study of whether investors could figure out these differences based on the standard disclosures that you gave them, and the bottom line was they can't. I don't have time to go through every example in the study, but I picked one out. One participant told an interviewer after reading side-by-side descriptions of the best interest and the fiduciary standards, I don't know, it's basically the same language, but the same, they just kind of word it differently. Yeah, so it's pretty much the same. But of course, the standards are not the same, which is the whole point here. When your own study shows that disclosures don't work to help regular investors make informed decisions, will you move away from a disclosure-based approach in your final rule and just adopt a uniform fiduciary standard for both advisors and brokers as Congress instructed in Section 913 of Dodd-Frank?
That's a good summary of where we are.
Good.
Let me tell you what we're doing.
Thank you.
No, it's very good. Let me tell you what we're doing. The advisor standard, and I'm going to call it the baseline advisor standard because advisors are allowed to contract around this standard. It's not well known. This is something that we want people to understand. The baseline advisor standard is the advisor cannot put their interests ahead of the client's interests. Now, they are able to say, but I'm going to do these things, and with informed consent, they can cut back on that standard. That's not well understood. We want that to be understood. But on the broker side, the fundamental duty is going to be that the broker cannot put her or his interests ahead of the client's. So it's the same, but it's a different,
Well,
but
if
it's
it's
a
the
different
same,
type of
let me
relationship.
suggest, Mr. Chairman, if it's the same, just use the same words.
We may do that.
Because when you're not using the same words and in fact trying to give a description so that people have to sort out which of the two kinds of people they're dealing with and how the standards differ from each other, it means the disclosure's not working. Look, we've had study after study after study that shows that pages of disclosures don't work. And even if people read the disclosures and they can't make heads nor tails from it, now your own study reaches exactly the same conclusion. You know, the inference I draw from this is that we need a clear, uniform fiduciary standard for advisors and brokers. It's the only way to make sure that people who are trying to save for their kids' college education or their retirement are getting the advice that is best for them instead of what's most profitable for the person giving the advice.
I believe, oh, sorry, good.
Okay.
We need to shut it down.
Okay, thank you.